You wake up, you check your phone, you answer messages, you follow routines, you obey signals you don't remember agreeing to, but still, you feel in control, don't you? Let me ask you something darker. What if control no longer looks like chains, but like kindness? What if it hides behind the smiles of those who care for you, your boss, your partner, your mentor, your government? Niccolo Machiavelli, in 1513, wrote something no one wanted to hear. He stripped away illusions. He didn't tell you how the world should work. He showed how it does. Power, he said, does not scream. It whispers. It doesn't strike. It waits. And the most dangerous form of manipulation is the one that looks like respect. This video is not about kings and princes. It's about your relationships, your job, your society. You are about to discover 5 invisible strategies of social control still used today. Techniques so subtle, so embedded in the human psyche that they feel natural, expected, even fair. And the worst part, if you can't see them, you're already under them. If you feel that the world hides more than it shows, subscribe now. This channel exposes what they never meant for you to understand. Now let's begin. The captivity of gratitude. There's a phrase you've heard your whole life. Don't bite the hand that feeds you. It sounds like wisdom, but it's not. It's a warning, a quiet threat wrapped in the language of loyalty. Machiavelli understood something most people still don't. True power doesn't come from forcing obedience. It comes from manufacturing loyalty. And loyalty built on gratitude is the most seductive prison of all. Look around you. Notice the ones who've helped you. The friend who gave you a chance when no one else did. The boss who believed in you. The partner who forgave. But never let you forget, they gave you something, but what they really handed you was a chain, silken, polished, invisible, and you wear it with pride. Machiavelli wrote in The Prince that rulers must strategically grant favors, not to be loved, but to make their subjects dependent. Because when someone feels indebted to you, they will defend your power as if it were their own. Think of modern relationships, workplaces, even governments. When someone gives you more than you expect, your first emotion isn't suspicion, it's guilt. And guilt, when left unexamined, becomes obedience. You start justifying things you once questioned. You tolerate behavior you once resisted. Why? Because after all they've done for me. But what if that's the plan? What if they know exactly what they're doing? This is how invisible control works, not through force, through calculated generosity. A toxic manager doesn't start by criticizing you. He starts by investing in you, making you feel chosen. Then over time, he withholds praise until you work twice as hard just to feel worthy again. A manipulative partner doesn't scream at first. They listen, they validate you, they create emotional safety, then slowly twist that safety into obligation. And when you finally question it, your own mind betrays you. But they were there for me when no one else was. Machiavelli's genius was in revealing the mechanics behind the mask. He warned that kindness used strategically is more effective than fear because it makes you imprison yourself. The moment you feel like you owe someone, they no longer need to control you. You'll do it for them. So ask yourself now, who are you loyal to? Not out of love or trust, but out of unspoken debt. Who holds your gratitude like a leash? And what would happen if you tried to walk away? That's when the real nature of the gift is revealed. It was never kindness, it was currency, and you were the purchase, the art of withholding the truth. Most people think they're being lied to. But the real game of power isn't built on lies. It's built on incomplete truths. Machiavelli understood that the most effective way to control minds is not by feeding them falsehoods, but by feeding them just enough of the truth to keep them from looking deeper. This is how modern manipulation works. You're shown the facts, but not all of them. You're told what happened, but not why. You hear the truth, but only the part that serves their agenda. In The Prince, Machiavelli warns rulers to control appearances, to craft a version of reality that seems honest, because an obvious lie destroys trust. But a half-truth? A half-truth leaves you confused, and confusion is where control begins. Think about it. When someone lies to you directly, your instinct is to resist, to question. But when they omit, when they curate, when they show you a clean and simplified version of events, you don't resist, you believe. Why? Because your brain hates uncertainty. It craves closure. It fills in the blanks on its own. So when someone shows you 80% of the story, your subconscious supplies the missing 20%. And that 20%? That's where they control you. Governments do it, media does it, religious leaders, CEOs, even lovers. They don't lie, they just don't tell you what you would need to see clearly. A politician says, "We created jobs," but doesn't tell you what, kind or for whom. A partner says, "I've been honest with you," but forgets to mention what they chose to be honest about. A boss says, "You're a valuable member of this team," but omits why your raise never came. These aren't lies, they're strategic silences, and Machiavelli knew silence is more powerful than deception, because silence leaves space for the victim to build their own illusion, and people don't fight illusions, they built themselves. So now, look back at your life. When was the last time someone didn't lie to you, but left something out, and you told yourself the rest? That moment, that gap in information, was a doorway, and someone walked through it, into your mind. The most dangerous control is not forceful, it's surgical. It doesn't shove beliefs into your head, it gives you the pieces and lets you build the cage yourself. Calculated kindness. There is no weapon more disarming than kindness, but not all kindness comes from love. Some of it comes from strategy, from the ancient art of control through comfort. Machiavelli knew this and warned of it. In The Prince, he explained that a ruler must appear merciful, faithful, humane, and religious. Not necessarily be those things, but appear to be. Why? Because kindness lowers defenses, and lowered defenses are easier to conquer. You know this instinctively. Think of the person who was kind to you when you were vulnerable, the boss who praised you when you doubted yourself, the partner who supported you when you were at your lowest. It felt real, it felt like care. But what if that kindness was timed? What if it was calculated? What if they knew exactly when to be gentle, not to heal you, but to own you? You see, power today isn't brute force, it's emotional leverage, and kindness is the most efficient way to gain it. Think about manipulation in toxic relationships. The abuser is never cruel all the time. They interweave cruelty with comfort, pain with praise, distance with sudden affection, that unpredictable pattern. It's called intermittent reinforcement, and it's how loyalty is forged, not through trust, but through confusion. Your mind becomes addicted to the next act of kindness, always chasing the person they were during the good moments, always hoping they'll come back. But here's the brutal truth. They never left. They just used kindness as bait. Kindness, when used strategically, becomes a psychological debt. You feel the need to reciprocate, to please, to obey, not because they demanded it, but because they were so good to you. That's how power hides in generosity, not in what's given, but in what's expected in return. And that expectation, it's rarely spoken. It lives in the silence, in the subtle shift in tone when you disagree, in the sudden withdrawal of warmth, when you say no, in the guilt that rushes through you when you assert yourself. Ask yourself, is there someone in your life who makes you feel indebted to their kindness? Someone whose approval you crave, not because of who they are, but because of how they made you feel when they were good to you. That's not love, that's leverage. And Machiavelli would tell you, a ruler who uses fear may be hated, but a ruler who uses kindness to bind his subjects emotionally, that ruler will never be questioned, Because when kindness is weaponized, loyalty becomes a prison cell lined with velvet. Fear disguised as respect. You call it respect. But deep down, it feels like fear. Not terror, not panic, but that quiet, tightening feeling in your chest when you're around someone you can't quite challenge. You admire them. You speak well of them. You do what they ask, even when it doesn't feel right. But if you stripped away the title, the charm, the authority, would you still obey, or would you finally admit the truth? You don't respect them. You're afraid of disappointing them, afraid of their silence, afraid of their gaze. This is what Machiavelli meant when he wrote, "It is much safer to be feared than loved if one must choose." Not because fear is loud, but because fear is silent. It lives in the hesitation before you speak, the way your words shift when they're around, the self-doubt that creeps in when you imagine disagreeing. In modern society, fear doesn't always look like violence. It looks like status, reputation, power. You're not allowed to question. Your boss smiles, but your body tenses when they enter the room. Your partner accepts your independence, but you still feel guilty when you say no. Your mentor says, "Speak freely," but you choose your words like you're walking on glass. You think you're being respectful, but you're self-censoring. And that is the most advanced form of submission, when the ruler no longer needs to enforce boundaries because you've already built them inside yourself. Machiavelli understood that visible tyranny invites rebellion, but invisible fear, cloaked in admiration, that keeps people loyal, even when their soul screams otherwise. This kind of respect is not given freely, it's extracted, earned through subtle dominance, through moments of unpredictability, through making you feel like everything you have is because of them, and that if you step out of line, you could lose it all. Ask yourself, who in your life do you respect, but never truly feel safe around? Who gets your silence, not because they earned your trust, but because you fear their disappointment? You see, fear wears many faces, but the most dangerous one is this: the face you smile at while shrinking inside. Machiavelli didn't promote cruelty. He revealed its camouflage, the velvet glove over the iron hand. And now so must you, if you've felt this. If this chapter mirrored something you've never said aloud, subscribe now. Because the next ones cut even deeper. Indifference as a weapon. There is a certain kind of power that doesn't speak. It doesn't chase, it doesn't plead. It simply looks away and waits. Indifference. The most subtle and devastating form of control. When someone ignores you, your mind doesn't rest. It races. You question what you did. You search for a reason. You try to fix it. And just like that, you've surrendered your power. Machiavelli understood this dynamic long before it had a name. He didn't call it ghosting or emotional distancing, but he knew that withholding attention creates hunger. In The Prince, he emphasized appearances, not emotions. He knew that rulers must never appear needy, because whoever appears emotionally detached controls the pace of the game. Modern manipulators have mastered this art. They don't insult you, they don't threaten, they simply become unavailable. They retreat, they respond with coldness, and in doing so, they force you to move closer, to apologize, to prove yourself, to beg for the warmth they once gave so freely. This is the cruelty of indifference. It makes you do the work. You rationalize their silence. You lower your standards. You offer more in exchange for less. They don't have to control you. You start controlling yourself, making sure you don't upset them again. Think of the last person who made you feel invisible. Did you try harder? Were you more careful with your words? Did you blame yourself for the distance? That wasn't love. That wasn't mutual respect. That was a test of dominance, because the one who cares less, the one who stays silent longer, the one who remains unmoved, dictates the emotional economy, and you become the desperate investor, always pouring more in, hoping to see a return. Machiavelli would not call this cruelty. He would call it wisdom. To him, power is not about affection, it's about leverage. And there is no greater leverage than being the one who appears to need nothing. Ask yourself, who in your life makes you feel like you're always one step away from losing them? Who disappears to make you chase? Who punishes you, not with anger, but with emptiness? That's not detachment. It's not just how they are. It's a tactic, and it works until you see it. Because once you name the silence, once you stop taking responsibility for their coldness, you regain the one thing they feared you'd reclaim: self-respect. Image over truth. The world doesn't care who you are, it only cares who you appear to be, and that is the greatest con of all. Machiavelli knew this centuries ago. In The Prince, he wrote that a ruler must seem moral, even if he is not. That perception is more powerful than character, because truth is slow, but image is instant. You don't have time to study everyone's motives, so you trust the costume, the branding, the smile, the voice, and in doing so, you give your loyalty to an illusion. Think of today's leaders, politicians, influencers, CEOs, spiritual guides. Most aren't who they claim to be. They're constructs built by teams, crafted by algorithms, polished for mass consumption. They post about humility. From private jets, they speak of unity. While dividing, they sell authenticity. That's been rehearsed 100 times, but you follow, you admire, because their image is flawless. And flawlessness, in the unconscious mind, reads as truth. That's how you're controlled, not by rules, not by force, but by admiration for a manufactured persona. You want to be like them. You defend them. You shape your values to mirror theirs, without ever meeting the person behind the mask. This is what Machiavelli warned, that leaders must look virtuous, but behind closed doors, they do what power requires. And when they fall, when the truth leaks out, you don't believe it, because the image has already sunk too deep. The illusion feels safer than reality, so you choose denial. Ask yourself, how many people have you trusted, not because of their actions, but because of their presentation? Whose words have you repeated? Whose values have you internalized, without ever questioning the source? Now take a harder look. Are you loyal to them, or to the idea of them? Because that's how power lasts. It detaches itself from reality and lives in your imagination. Machiavelli didn't create the system, he exposed it. And now so must you. Behind every good image, there is a strategy, and behind every strategy, there is a player. So the next time someone looks too perfect, ask yourself, is this who they are, or just who they want me to see? Predictability as a cage. You think you're making choices. You think your actions are your own. But what if every move you make was already anticipated? What if your freedom is real, only within the boundaries someone else drew? Machiavelli, centuries ago, warned that the most powerful rulers are those who understand human patterns, not just politics, behavior, instinct, desire. Because once you can predict a person, you don't need to force them. You simply provide what they expect, what they crave, what they fear, and they will obey willingly. Today, this goes far beyond kings and war rooms. It lives in algorithms, in marketing, in relationships, in the way your phone feeds you dopamine, just enough to keep you scrolling, just enough to make you feel like you're choosing, but you're not, you're responding. You wake up, check your notifications, eat what they sold you, think what your circle agrees with, react to news that was curated for your outrage. Every click, every like, every word expected, engineered, predicted, and in this predictability, you feel secure because the brain loves the familiar. It confuses routine with safety, and that's where the trap is laid. Predictable people are easy to govern, to sell to seduce, to neutralize. Machiavelli knew that a ruler should never be predictable, but his subjects must be. Why? Because unpredictability is dangerous. It invites chaos, and chaos threatens the system. So they keep you entertained, distracted, busy, just enough to keep you from asking, what would happen if I stopped repeating the script? Ask yourself now, how much of your day was truly chosen by you? How many of your beliefs came from raw experience and not repetition? Are you living, or are you performing a role someone wrote long before you arrived? The truth is, they don't have to chain you. They just have to make sure you don't stray. By feeding you predictability, they make you a functioning prisoner, a cog that runs smoothly, never realizing it's part of a machine. But the moment you act unpredictably, break routine, speak differently, refuse what you once accepted, you fracture the cage. You become inconvenient, unstable, dangerous, free. Machiavelli would nod in silence, not because he admired rebellion, but because he knew only those who break their own patterns can ever hope to break free from another's control. If you saw it all, you're already awake. You made it this far. That means something in you refuses to stay asleep. You've seen the game now, not as it's sold to you, but as it truly is. You've seen how kindness can be currency, how truth can be sculpted, how love can be leveraged, and how freedom can be faked. You've seen the 5 invisible threads that pull at your mind, not through violence, but through familiarity, subtlety, emotional gravity. Machiavelli never promised a way out. He simply described a room you were already in, without the comforting wallpaper. And now that you've seen it, what will you do? Because awareness alone does not free you. Freedom demands action. It demands discomfort. It demands you break the silent contracts you never agreed to. You'll lose people. You'll be misunderstood. You'll be called cold, distant, selfish. But in that rejection, you will feel something no controlled person ever feels: sovereignty. They can't use what you see. They can't trap what won't respond. They can't guilt what no longer obeys. So from here on, every choice you make carries more weight than ever. Will you go back to sleep pretending this was just a video? Or will you act, knowing the game, seeing the players, refusing the role? The control was always silent, but now so is your rebellion. Subscribe, because here we don't escape through hope, we escape through clarity.